Hello and welcome back. We still have with us Shankar Maruwada, the CEO of EkStep Foundation and the erstwhile marketing officer for the UIDAI project. In the previous session, Shankar shared with us his own journey, and along with the journey, we got an insight into how a digital public infrastructure like Aadhaar is built. I think now the lines are a bit more broader, and your own journey with EkStep has opened up a lot more opportunities. So tell us, how have you evolved from education to all the stuff that you folks are doing now?
So we set up EkStep Foundation in 2015, Nandan, Nilekani, Rohini, Nilekani and I. The idea was again using technology with philanthropic money to impact population scale. But again, building off the Aadhaar principle, take one sector, take one specific problem and do that at scale. That's how we started with education, school education and early learning. And we had, like with Aadhaar, we had set a goal that we will reach 200 million children in India by 2020. Naturally, we started off and did a lot of things, some of which worked, it did not work. It also gave us a deeper appreciation of the complexities of some social sectors like education, which are way more complex than identity.
And healthcare.
And healthcare, right? Which are social problems, right? And not transactional, like proving an identity.
Like UPI.
UPI, Aadhaar, etc., FASTag. So, but as we learned, we also experimented a lot with a lot of technology. And then the government of India in around 2017 requested us to help them create a platform, a kind of a DPI, which we did. That became known as Diksha, or the Digital Infrastructure for Knowledge Sharing, which was launched by the Vice President in 2017. Platform that belongs to the government of India, but it's offered as an infrastructure to all the states to voluntarily come on board. And the team worked really hard in close partnership with government of India, many other states. And within 2-3 years, more than 20 states of India were already using it. And by the time COVID hit in early 2020, there were already 28 states on this platform. So it became easy for the country as a whole to switch to online learning and to have teachers do their training online. So by the time 2020 ended, we don't know whether we reached 200 million kids, but certainly Diksha had a reach of around 180 million kids and 7 million plus teachers. That was the first part of what we did. And then that gave us the confidence to see, can this approach be used beyond early education? And in what we call as Chapter 2 of EkStep Foundation, we've expanded that idea of using philanthropic money to build open source technology, use that technology to help governments build digital public infrastructure. So one of the technology open source projects that we created was Sunbird. Sunbird is what Diksha is built on, but the same Sunbird could be used by another government department, which is the Department of Personnel and Training, to build a digital learning management platform for civil servants and government officers. So the same philanthropic money could be used for multiple purposes by different organizations, each to solve their own achieve their own specific goals. That idea, which we learned in the first 5-year chapter 1, is what we did more intensely. The conventional technologies, we're also looking at AI, and we're also looking at open networks as an idea, the same idea that is behind ONDC. And there are a lot of interesting projects we are working on. And also, as and when needed, helping in some of the policy reformation work that's happening in education.
So let me kind of encapsulate from a transaction platform, different lessons, to a service delivery platform, a bigger complexity, different kind, different layers of success, if I might say so, to now being the core technology enablement platform provider. That's very, very interesting. And along with that, has also mapped out the overall blooming of digital public infrastructures across the country. So, Sunburn by itself must have been a different set of lessons compared to what you did during Aadhaar.
Yes, because the sector was much more complex. How technology can and should be used in education is a completely different ball game, because you're talking of children, right? You're talking of teachers. You're talking about uh, possible ill effects of technology, right? How do you minimize that? How do you make sure teachers don't think it's taking away their powers? So it's a social problem as much as it is a technology problem. And education happens over years, 10 to 15 years, right? And it's a whole of society approach. So the degree of complexity is much, much more. But ironically, the lessons of Aadhaar apply even more. Minimalism of technology, using an ecosystem approach, a demand driven approach, and layering value, uh, and being prepared for future evolutions. So rather than trying to solve all of it in one shot through say an edtech platform, right? So we had learnt our lessons, but each year we learned
Newer lessons.
newer lessons and nuanced our approach more.
So, you said we are doing a lot of interesting things. Share a couple of them with us.
Last year we launched an open network for education and skilling. Now, suppose a child needs a scholarship, or you have uh, organizations like Pratham and Educate Girls, who focus, among other things, on those girls who have dropped out of school, help them and make them write a board exam to pass, right? There the child needs 2000 rupees to pay the board fees. Now, suppose there was a way that through Educate Girls, the number of such children are kind of, their needs are discovered. Say 1800 children in Bihar want to do this, right? Somebody can sponsor that, fund that. Can demand be discovered for specific financial assistance? Can demand be discovered of certain people who want jobs? So I've just passed class 12 or graduation. I want a job, entry level job.
So, this is what you meant by open network also. So, different need cases and different providers who might provide.
They can talk to each other, not necessarily only through a platform. This is very new, but we are very, very excited, especially as we are working with ecosystem providers. We think this can create a much larger market, because now as demand for specific demand is being discovered, and that if the demand is sachetized, not a 1 lakh rupee scholarship for which you have lots of checks and balances, but 1000 rupees to buy textbooks, 2000 rupees to appear for a board exam, right? A school might need 10,000 rupees to buy a computer. If demand can be disaggregated and discovered and verified digitally.
This sounds challenging compared to an Aadhaar or UPI, which is one is to many, one single value proposition, which is comparatively a closed network, core network with layers on top. This is completely open. What's a good example of a completely open working network?
The biggest is right under our nose. It's the internet.
Okay. Okay. Yes.
Right. A second is SMTP, the email protocol.
So protocols, yes, I can understand. But the moment you're talking about service delivery, they will end up being, so this is a bit different, or would you still call it as a DPI?
We like to think of it as an evolution of DPI, right? It's a new category of DPIs. Like with the first, it will take 4 or 5 years for us to understand the complexity, because this is a potential disruption, right? And anything like that, new players will emerge. there will be new kinds of service requirements. So, for example, credentialing will be a new service that can be added. But the simplest way to think of it is you're plugging into a network. So the electricity grid is a network. When you plug into the network, you want something, scholarship or a job or a learning material. Somebody is plugging into the network to offer something. A third set of players are plugging into the network to credential either the provider or the seeker.
Huge possibility. Sounds like a different order of challenges along with it. But tell me, isn't it kind of similar to what ONDC is trying to do?
Yes. So
And that
even
sounds complicated as it is.
ONDC is the open network for digital commerce. ONDC is a DPI that provides open networks for commerce.
And these would be open networks for social or other
Educational skilling.
educational
But
skilling.
we are doing it in partnership with ONDC, several organizations. But think of this as an extension of the idea. Educational skilling have some specific requirements. But in ONDC already, they're onboarding farmers, they're onboarding self-help groups, women entrepreneurs, etc. Because the purpose of ONDC is beyond just digital commerce. It is equity, it is enabling those who are marginalized to participate in digital commerce. So yes, the ONDC, the ON stands for Open Networks. It is relatively new, less than 3 years old. It's in its early stages, but it's an exciting potential, and it could be the first innovative idea coming out of India, right? And I'm using that deliberately, the idea of open networks. Of course, UPI and all are truly transformational, but the concept of an open network itself is new to the world when used in this context. So we have a long way to go, a lot of challenges. There will be a lot of myths and false promises, etc. But at the core of it, it's a simple idea that for equitable growth, networks are better than platforms.
Shankar, you just completed a talk for my students, which you very interestingly titled When DPI Met AI. So, for the sake of our listeners, tell us what magic happens when DPI meets AI.
Yeah, magic can happen and bad things can also happen, right?
Like with any other technology.
Like with any other technology, right? Because the thrill of technology is the rapid pace at which it evolves. But the danger of technology is what was the big thing gets rapidly outdated and obsolete. So in India's case, because of a DPI approach, a set of DPIs each doing one thing, a stacked approach to creating value. Also in AI, for the last few years, we have been building AI as a stack approach, specifically around language.
Tell us more about this.
OpenAI used a lot of data from online, which is mostly English, and from social media.
And we didn't have those.
We didn't have those, right? So for Indian languages, and we have many of those, you first needed to get the data, text data, speech data. This data had to be collected with a high degree of precision, conversational language, domain level language, dialects which are different. And it could not be collected and siloed by one organization. So as a philanthropic effort, EkStep, among others, funded a public effort by an IIT Madras center called AI for Bharat to collect this data. So this data, which has been released in stages including as recent as this morning, allows others to build models on top. Those models are used to build tools and applications. So a DPI approach to AI was what India has been following, which is why we have a DPI for AI called Bhashini, which is run by the Government of India's Ministry of Information Telecom, and a division of that called Bhashini division. Just like Aadhaar offers identity services to others, Bhashini offers AI-based language services, text-to-text translation, speech-to-speech translation, and several departments have already started using it. So when AI meets DPI, we see two exciting possibilities. One, AI can help to solve some of the existing barriers which DPI have not solved, language barrier. So AI can help amplify the effect of DPI. AI can help improve DPI. On the other hand, because of the wide reach of DPIs can help to make AI a truly inclusive technology, can help to democratize technology rather than the conventional waterfall method. And there's several examples which we directly know of or are working with in agriculture. Farmers using their WhatsApp, talking to their WhatsApp to find the status of their payments. Teachers talking to their phones to get specific answers to questions which are retrieved from government documents. And these bots are by the government of India, various ministries. In finance, voice based payments, which is Hello UPI, which is riding on top of the DPIs created already. So DPIs have massive reach. AIs are adding value to them. And because of the reach of DPIs, AI is getting democratized faster. So we see this as a positive cycle.
Not only is AI getting democratized faster, the AI kernel itself is not owned by a big tech,
Exactly.
which is going to be monetized by them, but is going to be used for social benefit.
Exactly. So, which is why we say when DPI meets AI, it's not DPI plus AI, it is DPI to the power of AI. And that next 7 to 10 years, India will become the AI use case capital of the world.
When you put all that we have discussed till now in context, and then you look at the the Indian perspective for the rest of the globe, I think perhaps it's time for a rethink. I know the G20 has adopted DPI as an integral part of its manifesto, but even otherwise, at a global level, when you talk about India, yes, our diaspora, our management talent, our cuisine, our IT sector, in fact, our technological leadership is still represented as our IT sector. Isn't it time for us to change that discourse into making the digital infrastructure of India at a social level really represent what we mean?
Yes, I think the time is now right. Because what India has shown is you can solve tough problems at a population scale, India scale, using technology as an enabler, but accompanied by responsible policies, creating value for citizens, markets, and governments, or Samaj Sarkar and Bazaar. And this Samaj Sarkar Bazaar model, which DPI enables, is something truly unique to India. And I think in today's world, it is something which India can and should be a beacon of how it has used technology to achieve both inclusion and innovation. Countries struggle with one or the other. And it's also not something where the technology belongs to India. Like many of the other things, brand yoga, many other ideas, right? It's like perfume. The idea can spread to the whole world. How they implement it is what belongs to them. But the idea belongs to the whole world.
And I think that's a very, very interesting take in terms of the idea of, and perhaps it needs not just a rethink in terms of India, but even what we call as innovation for India, which is somehow or the other kind of compartmentalized as jugaad or low cost innovation. But if there was anything ever done at scale in terms of innovation, where each and every layer has been done with such thoughtfulness, such planning, such technological insight, and plans for evolution, I think this is it. Perhaps time to rechange not just India's technological understanding or representation, but also what innovating for India means.
Absolutely. There was a time when our IT was known as the backroom boys of the world. Then it grew to high quality service delivered out of India. Then it grew to products, right? We can create great platforms, great products. I think in the And therefore, attendant with that was the idea of cheap innovation,
Jugaad.
jugaad. I think now the world is realizing that if anything is an innovation that works in India, it is
works for
worth
the rest.
taking to the rest of the world. And so the idea of Indian innovation, which has been changing over the last 3-4 decades, in the next 10-20 years will mean something else.
And on that happy note, thank you, Shankar, for your time. It was absolutely fabulous to hear you talk about not just what we did with Aadhaar, but what lies ahead for us and how it might just end up redefining what Indian innovation is. Thanks, Shankar.
Thank you for inviting me and for an engaging conversation.